Do you believe that Jesus is a sinner?
No.
In Matthew 16:23, when Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan," was he saying the truth?
Of course he was.
Then why do you take anything from Peter and put it in a book and you call it holy?
I'm sorry, just repeat that.
Then why do you take anything from Peter and you add it to your book and you call it holy? If he's Satan.
Because he's not literally calling him Satan. He's telling Peter, you do not have the plans of God. You have the plans of men, which Satan, in the same sense, wanted to derail the cross too. So he's saying, Peter, you're not thinking in line with my will. He's not saying Peter is of Satan. He's trying to correct Peter because he doesn't want Jesus to be crucified.
So is it okay for me to correct someone and tell him you are Satan?
That's up to
Or
you.
that will be name calling?
That's up to you. And
I think everybody would agree that will be name calling.
so you're saying Jesus is a sinner because he called...
No, what I'm saying that Peter is Satan, and we should not take any words from him to put it in the Bible.
Well, sir, you're not interpreting that text properly. You're imposing...
I'm just following Jesus. Jesus said that Peter is a Satan. Then why should I take anything from Peter?
Because he's not calling him Satan. Again, you would not apply...
Matthew 16:23 said, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan."
So you think he really means that he's the person of
So
Satan?
either you have two options. Either that what Jesus said was true, then Peter is Satan, therefore we cannot take anything from Peter, or that Peter is not Satan, therefore Jesus was what he said was a lie, and that makes him a sinner. Which one do you choose?
Well, again, I would say in John 21, Jesus recommissions Peter to tell him to feed my sheep, commissioning him as a leader. So obviously Jesus didn't consider him to be Satan, otherwise he wouldn't have commissioned him before he ascended.
So if he considered him to be Satan, then I should not take 1 Peter, 2 Peter, I should not take Mark, because Mark is the disciple of Peter, and so on. So the whole Bible collapsed, my friend.
Ahmed, this is a silly point you're making. This is, you are not applying the standards of interpretation, contextual, grammatical, historical interpretation. You are taking that text, ripping it out of the Bible to make it say something you want it to say without the theological content. You would never do this to the Quran.
I am just following Jesus. You are not.
Is that a question?
That's a statement.
Go on.
Okay. Where in Mark says that Mark wrote Mark?
I'm sorry?
Where in the Gospel of Mark says that Mark wrote Mark? Where in the Gospel of Matthew says that Matthew wrote Matthew? Where in the Gospel of John says John wrote John? Where is the Gospel of Luke says Luke wrote Luke?
We both know that those manuscripts don't have their names, but the reason we believe is because early church fathers like Papias, like Irenaeus, like Clement of Alexandria, in their writings attributed the Gospels to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The earliest Christian tradition, which, by the way, Papias was around 60 to 130 AD, attributing these names to the Gospel writers. That's why we believe this.
So after 200 years, somebody decided to put a name on these writings, and they said, this is the book of John, this is the book of Matthew, and we should believe it. And we say, okay, this is the, these are the holy words, this is the word of God.
Again, Papias, 60 AD to 130 AD attributes those gospel books to
Well,
the,
I have
to
another
the
144 Marcions and says nothing, none of that. None of the book of John, none of the book of Luke, none of that. And it says that this is the real Bible.
Is that a question?
What can we do about that? Are you going to say that this is not the real Bible and the others are real Bible? Based on what? Based on people? Based on voting?
What's your question?
That's the question. On what basis do we choose the Bible? Based on what? Based on voting? Based on people? Based on opinion? Or based that at least the minimum it has to say, I am Mark, and I'm inspired by God, and I'm writing this. I am Matthew, and I'm inspired by God, I'm writing this.
We're now going to take a brief break. We'll take a 5-minute break.